Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Burn the RuleBook podcast. This is the podcast where we break down menopause, mental health, and relationships one truth at a time. I'm Rachel Boyle, a licensed couples therapist, sex therapist, and certified menopause specialist. Today's episode is part 2 of our deep dive into anxiety, but this time we're looking at it through a physiological lens. What's happening in your brain, your body, and your nervous system that makes anxiety feel so intense during perimenopause and menopause? Let's break it down. Welcome back to the Burn the RuleBook podcast. Today we are going to be talking about the surprising link between anxiety and hot flashes. So let's start with the symptoms so many women in midlife experience, and that is the hot flashes. And hot flashes aren't just about temperature regulation. They're a sign that your nervous system could be overstimulated. And studies have found that hot flashes, anxiety are highly correlated. Meaning, if you're having one, you're more than likely having the other. And why is this? Because they're both governed by the autonomic nervous system, specifically the sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system, which is the part of your nervous system that is responsible for fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Now, most people have heard of fight, flight, and freeze. Not everyone has heard of fawn. Fawn is people pleasing. But for anxiety, today we're just going to be focusing on the fight and flight part of the autonomic nervous system. So when your brain perceives a threat or even just a rise in internal stress, it sends chemicals like epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline, cortisol, flooding the body and flooding your system with energy because your nervous system can't tell the difference between an emotional threat or a physical threat. Now, threat makes people think that there's this great danger, but really, anytime our body feels uncomfortable internally or emotionally or feels emotional pain, our nervous system senses that as a threat. And, when our nervous system developed, we had a lot of physical threats like survival. So if you were walking through the woods and you saw a bush rustle, right? If you didn't run, you could get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or maybe a bear. And today, most of our threats aren't saber-toothed tigers or bears. Most of our threats are the stress that we deal with day to day, like lack of sleep, stress at work, stress with children, stress in relationships. Yet our autonomic nervous system, anytime we feel emotional pain or discomfort, our nervous system senses that as a threat, even if there isn't a threat. So in perimenopause or menopause, your body may start to misfire with these signals. So what can happen is it can lead to symptoms like racing, pounding heart, sweating, panic, overwhelm, heat rising up through your body. And now if anyone has ever had a hot flash, then you know exactly what this feels like. And that's not just anxiety, it's also your nervous system having a physiological response. Now, for some women, this can happen in the middle of the night, where women can wake up gasping for breath, heart pounding, feeling hot, having anxiety, or a full-blown panic attack. Now, this doesn't feel good when it happens to you, right? It feels pretty scary. And later on in the show, I'm going to tell you what to do in that situation to make yourself feel better fast. Next, though, we're going to talk about polyvagal theory and how that helps to explain what's happening with your nervous system. Polyvagal theory was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges and has also been widely taught by Deb Dana. And it's one of the best ways that we have to understand anxiety in the body, not just as a mental state, but as a nervous system response to a perceived threat. So remember, a nervous system or an autonomic nervous system response is a perceived threat. It doesn't mean that you're actually in danger. It just means that your nervous system thinks you're in danger. Next, you've got your ventral vagal state. This is the state when you're calm, connected, you're social, you feel safe and grounded. This is the place where we try to be because it feels good, right? We want to try to spend most of our time in this grounded state. But when you're in perimenopause and menopause and you've got neuroendocrine modulators that aren't firing properly because of the lack of estrogen, it's harder to get into that calm, grounded state. So that's when you're in the sympathetic state, which is fight or flight. Your heart races, Your breath gets shallow and quick, and your body is preparing itself to either run or go into a fight, which is why all those chemicals get released, sending blood to your muscles and your arms and your legs and your heart, preparing you to get out of there or to fight. Now, the final state that I'm going to talk about is the dorsal vagal state. This is when your body shuts down. It's that numb, foggy, disconnected feeling. We're not going to be talking about that so much today because we're focusing on anxiety, and that has mainly to do with depression. So I'll talk about that in another episode. But today we're going to talk about the sympathetic part of your nervous system because that is what's getting activated during anxiety, and it gets activated when your estrogen levels drop. So estrogen plays a critical role in regulating your nervous system because it's a neuroendocrine modulator. Most people don't realize that you've got estrogen receptors all over your brain. And so whenever you're in the roller coaster of perimenopause and your estrogen is going up and down, or you're in full blown menopause and your estrogen is practically zero, you live more in this sympathetic mode, which is the fight or flight mode, even if there's not any additional external stressors. That's why you can feel anxious, what seems like out of the blue for no reason at all. And I want you to know that you are not imagining this. It's biological. Biological. It's actually happening to you because of what's going on in your brain. So we're going to talk about the hormonal cascade of cortisol, estrogen, and the anxiety loop. If we go deeper into the hormonal piece, when estrogen declines, the brain's ability to regulate stress hormones like cortisol becomes compromised. And cortisol is your body's main stress hormone. It's supposed to help you respond to short-term stress, right? But in perimenopause and menopause, the brain's feedback loop isn't working properly because it doesn't have as much estrogen as it needs. So you get caught in this high elevated cortisol state, which can lead to things like anxiety, insomnia, brain fog, and feeling easily overwhelmed and stressed out. And all this can happen even to small stressors in midlife because your body is responding as if there is an emergency, even if there isn't one. That's what our nervous system does. Our nervous system is constantly on cues for signs of safety or danger. So whenever those feedback loops aren't working properly, you get a heightened sense of danger, even if you're not in danger, leading to the cascade of chemicals like epinephrine, norepinephrine, and adrenaline being released into your body. And that's what causes the anxiety. Now, what can you do about this? You want to learn how to regulate your nervous system. And I'm going to teach you how to do that so that your body can start to feel safe again. And this is with science-backed tools. These are the tools that I teach my clients to help them regulate their anxiety during perimenopause and menopause. The first one is bilateral movement, and I talked about this in the previous episode. Remember, it's walking, swimming. It's where you're moving the right and left side of your body in a rhythmic motion. This can help calm the nervous system by integrating both sides of the brain. Now, if you're having an anxiety surge or a hot flash, then you can go for a walk, help yourself calm down, and it's going to make you feel better. But if you're really too hot and maybe you don't want to be exercising, remember you can do some gentle tapping on your shoulders like this, or you can do your feet left, right. And this is going to help calm your nervous system. The second thing is vagal breathing. And I talked about this in the previous episode, which is the box breathing. Whenever you focus on your breath and you slow it down, it slows down your heart rate. And when your heart rate slows down, that sends the signal to your brain that you're safe. And that then will help you get out of fight or flight mode. Now, remember, it can take several minutes for your body to calm down depending on the level of anxiety that you're having. Now, this third thing that I'm going to tell you about, most people don't know. It's my little hack, and it is to activate the rest and digest side of your nervous system. And you can do that by chewing on a piece of gum or using a lozenge because that activates the digestive part of your system, because you have the chewing motion, right? And then you have the swallowing motion whenever you start to produce saliva in your mouth. So remember earlier when we were talking about, well, what happens if you wake up in the middle of the night and your heart is pounding and you have anxiety, or you might even be having a full-blown panic attack? This is what I want you to do. I want you to have gum or lozenges on your nightstand. And when you wake up in that state, I want you to immediately take off the covers. I want you to sit up in bed. I want you to pop a piece of gum or a lozenge in your mouth. And I want you to start doing your box breathing exercises. And then I want you to cool off. I want you to get up out of bed. I want you to open a window, open a door if it's cool outside. I want you to, if it's not, then go ahead and I want you to walk around inside of your house in a slow, gentle, rhythmic movement. So now you're incorporating all these tools at the same time. You're chewing on a piece of gum, you're slowing down your breath, and focusing on your box breathing, and you're doing a bilateral movement by gently walking around through the house. Finally, I want you to drink some cool water. That's going to have that swallowing motion and it's going to help you cool off. Now, this is really going to help you feel better. And even just knowing this and knowing what is going on with your body will automatically help you feel better. So you won't be so scared when that happens in the middle of the night. Finally, I want you to find a menopause trained specialist so that they can talk to you about HRT to decrease the hot flashes. And it can also help with the pounding of the heart and the anxiety. And what I want you to hear loud and clear is that if this has happened to you, you're not overreacting. It's really scary when this stuff happens, especially when you wake up in the middle of the night and your heart starts pounding. And I know people who've ended up in the emergency room because of this, and they didn't know what was happening, and it's not fun to go through. So remember, you're not being too sensitive and you're not falling apart. These are things that are actually happening inside of your body. And knowing why they're happening and having a tool can help you with that panicky feeling. Now, remember, once you start using these tools, it can take anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes for your body to calm down, depending how much of that cortisol, epinephrine, and norepinephrine and adrenaline gets dumped into your body. So in closing, here's what we've covered today. Anxiety and hot flashes share a nervous system response. You are not imagining the connection. Polyvagal theory helps explain why your brain keeps sounding the alarm even though there's no real threat. And remember, your autonomic nervous system is automatic. It operates in the background. It's unconscious and it's like a reflex. So most of us, we don't have control over our autonomic nervous system until you start to focus in on these skills. Then you can tune into it. Like you don't control your blinking until you focus on it. You don't control your breath until you focus on it. And you can't calm down your heart rate until you calm down your breath. All of that is going to help the cortisol regulation, making it easier to recover from the feelings of anxiety and panic. When you understand the biology behind your anxiety, then you can stop blaming yourself and start supporting yourself. So just remember, it can feel scary the first time a hot flash and anxiety happens, but once you know what's going on, then it doesn't have to feel so out of control. That's it for today's podcast. Thanks for listening. And if you found this helpful, share it with a friend or leave a quick review. And you can always check the show notes because I leave additional information in the show notes for the resources that I talk about the show.